The movie begins by showing an old priest flying towards the Rocky Mountains above the sky where the gods of the sky are buried. The old priest, a guardian of the god's tomb, had come to this place because one of the gods would be resurrected that day. That god was one of the gods who had died in the heavenly war between the gods and the demons of hell. Not long after, a young man named Chen Nan, the celestial god's reincarnation, rose from the ground. He looked confused and didn't know who he really was because all the memories of every god reincarnated into a human had been erased. The old man guarding the tomb then attacked Chen Nan and said that over time he would slowly come back to remember and realize who his true identity was. After that, the old man guarding the tomb kicked him, throwing him from the sky and falling into the earth. When Chen Nan fell to the earth, Chen Nan fell into a river where a princess named Zuyu was bathing and cleaning her hair. Princess Zuyu looked surprised to see him, who appeared out of nowhere. She immediately shouted for help from the guards. She then ordered the guards to arrest Chen Nan and bring him to the kingdom to be thrown in a dungeon. On the other hand, a young man who was a prisoner of the royal prison seemed to be being treated by a prison guard girl named Nalan Ruo Shui. The young man named Zilong was annoyed that he had just been beaten by another inmate in the dungeon cell. While Nalan was busy treating Zilong's leg wound, the other prisoners seemed to be giving each other codes to start carrying out their plans. It turned out that the prisoners had intended to escape from the royal dungeon that day because they assumed that they had been held unjustly. The kingdom's prime minister, Shima, captured all of them and kept them in prison because they had spiritual power in their bodies. After confirming that the situation was safe, the prisoners began to take the weapons they had hidden behind the straw and attacked the prison guards. Nalan and Zilong decided to leave before the prisoners found them and attacked them all. They escaped through a secret passage where all the walls are plastered with spell paper. But when Zilong touched the spell paper, his hand suddenly reacted and emitted magic power. It turned out that the spell paper was magically created by a royal advisor named Suan Zhu to absorb magic power from other people. Fortunately, Nalan immediately pulled Zilong from the place and led him to run to another road, which made them have to face the prisoners who were rebelling. The prisoners immediately surrounded Nalan and intended to kill her so that the fight between them could not be avoided anymore. Nalan tries to fight against the prisoners alone while protecting her maid, but she fails to protect the servant girl and is almost killed by the prisoners. Luckily, Shima came to that place and saved Nalan from the attacks of the rebellious prisoners. After he sucked the spiritual power from the prisoners, he immediately attacked the remaining prisoners until they all lay helpless. Finally, the situation was conducive, and the prisoners were again taken to their respective detention cells, including Zilong. Back to Chen Nan, who was brought by the guards to the kingdom with Princess Zuyu. On the way to the royal palace, her bodyguard was suddenly attacked by a group of masked bandits who intended to seize the golden bow that she had brought. Chen Nan then took the initiative to fight against the bandits and protect Princess Zuyu, who had been captured by one of the bandits. Even though his hands were still bound by chains, he was able to beat the bandits with his kick. After Chen Nan managed to untie the chains in his hands, he attacked the bandits with a golden bow that miraculously reacted with his spiritual power. After successfully repelling the bandits, Chen Nan suddenly fell unconscious because he was still not used to the immense power in the golden arc from the heavenly world. In the evening, when Princess Zuyu and her bodyguard arrived at the palace with Chen Nan, Nalan came over to Princess Zuyu and greeted her. Soon afterward, Nalan asked what made Princess Zuyu go so long from the royal palace and travel such a long distance. She replied that she had to take the golden bow passed down by the sky god to treat the king, who was currently seriously ill. At the same time, Chen Nan, who had woken up, seemed to recognize Nalan's face and called her Yusin, his lover's name, when he was still in the Sky Palace. Apparently, Nalan had the exact same face as Yusin, who had disappeared 10,000 years ago when Chen Nan was still serving as one of the war gods in the Sky Palace. While Princess Zuyu was chatting with Nalan, Chen Nan suddenly disappeared from the palanquin and moved to the room where the golden bow was kept. After Princess Zuyu realized that Chen Nan had disappeared, she immediately ordered the guards to find him and transferred him to the dungeon. On the other hand, Chen Nan was still trying to escape the mysterious energy on the golden arc because it was constantly pulling and forcing him to hold on to it. At the same time, a strange reaction occurred to the king every time Chen Nan touched the golden bow. The king automatically recovered from his illness when Chen Nan held the golden bow, but the king fell ill again when he let go of the golden bow. Then when Princess Zuyu took the golden bow so that her father could touch it, the golden bow suddenly floated up and returned to Chen Nan, who was hiding. When he realized that the golden bow had ties to Chen Nan, the king ordered the guards to take him to the medical department. On the other hand, Prime Minister Shima received a report from his son, Lincoln, that he had failed to steal the golden bow from Princess Zuyu. It turned out that the bandits who had previously attacked Princess Zuyu were Prime Minister Shima's accomplices who had been ordered to snatch the golden bow from her. Although Linkong failed to carry out the mission to find the golden bow, he got important information where he had found a young man who had very high spiritual strength. Linkong even saw that the young man could master the power of the divine golden bow and use that bow as his weapon against the bandits. Hearing this, Prime Minister Shima seemed pleased that he intended to seize spiritual power from the young man and use that power so that he could stage a coup d'etat against the king. Meanwhile, unconscious in the medical room, Chen Nan suddenly dreamed about his past when he was still a war god. In the dream, he found himself fighting with the golden bow in a battle. That means, from the beginning, the golden bow was indeed his weapon and answered the riddle of why he could use the golden bow. That night, after Chen Nan woke up, he approached Nalan to ask if she was Yusin, his lover who had left the heavenly palace for a long time, but she reiterated to him that she was not the girl he was looking for. In the middle of their conversation, Linkong suddenly came to her place, so she immediately ordered Chen Nan to hide in her room. This was because Nalan had been betrothed by the Prime Minister to marry Linkong, and if he knew Chen Nan's whereabouts at her place, he would be in danger. The truth is, she never loved Linkong, but she was forced to agree to the matchmaking to respect the orders of Prime Minister Shima. After Linkong left Nalan's place, Chen Nan approached her and informed her that Linkong was the one who had attacked Princess Zuyu on the way to the palace the other day. He believed that because the shoes and voice of the assailant were exactly the same as Linkong's shoes and voice. A few days later, a group of masked assassins suddenly appeared in the emperor's palace and intended to attack the king. Fortunately, Prime Minister Shima could easily defeat the assassins, so the king was saved. Prime Minister Shima then asked about the young man's whereabouts, who had high spiritual power over the king. Still, the king, who had a bad feeling about his intentions, decided not to tell him anything. Princess Zuyu also tried to hide Chen Nan's whereabouts by saying that he had been captured and executed by the royal guards. In the evening, Prime Minister Shima summoned Nalan to his place to inquire about Chen Nan's whereabouts. However, she also pretended she didn't know anything and withheld information about his whereabouts. On that occasion, Prime Minister Shima told Nalan to prepare for her wedding with Linkong, which would take place in a few days. Hearing this, she seemed to object because she didn't want to marry Linkong, but she didn't dare to refuse his order. On the other hand, Princess Zuyu secretly captured Chen Nan and hid him in the dungeon. Fortunately, he managed to break free from the chains and immediately took her hostage. The prison guards reported the incident to Prime Minister Shima so that he finally found out where Chen Nan was. Prime Minister Shima then ordered the prison guards to put Chen Nan in a holding cell so he could not escape again. Inside the holding cell, he met Zilong, who claimed to be the reincarnation of a dragon god from the heavenly palace. Zilong knew that Chen Nan was a god because he had been in the army under Chen Nan. A few days later, when Nalan and Linkong's wedding day arrived, she couldn't stop thinking about Chen Nan's safety. Therefore, she decided to secretly release Chen Nan and Zilong without Prime Minister Shima knowing so that they could escape. After successfully escaping from the royal prison, Chen Nan was astonished by Nalan's strange-looking attitude. Zilong told him that today was her wedding day with Linkong. Hearing that, he ran to meet her. After arriving at the royal palace, Chen Nan immediately created a commotion to stop the marriage between Nalan and Linkong. Linkong, who did not accept his actions, attacked him, causing a fight between them. After a fairly fierce fight, Linkong was killed, so the marriage was cancelled. The next day, Nalan showed Chen Nan a secret book that had been hidden by Prime Minister Shima. In the secret book, it was written that he was planning to gather as much spiritual power as possible to evolve into an immortal being. That was also why he had often arrested people with spiritual powers and imprisoned them in dungeons. On the other hand, Prime Minister Shima came to see the royal advisor, teacher Suanzu, to ask for help so that Linkong could be resurrected from the dead. It turned out that during this time, he learned much about spiritual power from Suanzu and ordered Prime Minister Shima to gather spiritual power from other people. After hearing Prime Minister Shima's plea, Suanzu killed him instead of helping him by absorbing all the spiritual power from him to his body. Not long after, Chen Nan, Nalan, and Zilong also came to Suanzu's place because they had learned of his evil plan. He intends to take all the spiritual power of all kingdom members during the blessing ceremony, which will be held in a few days. Chen Nan knew that Suanzu had deliberately done all that so that he could become a god and live eternally in this world. However, Chen Nan, Nalan, and Zilong would not allow that, so they immediately fought against him. Unfortunately, Suanzu could easily defeat the three of them with his spiritual power over the years. In the evening, Suanzu went to meet the king and asked him to hold a blessing ceremony with the entire royal family. The king, who knew nothing about his evil plan, immediately agreed to it. This could happen because Suanzu had previously lied to the king that the blessing ceremony could cure his illness. The next day, Princess Suyu and other royal members gathered in the open hall to carry out the blessing ceremony. When all the royal members were ready, Sun Tzu immediately carried out his plan by absorbing all of their spiritual power. However, the execution was thwarted by Chen Nan and Zilong, who had recovered from being defeated by Sun Tzu. Zilong transformed into a giant dragon to help Chen Nan defeat him. Not only that, but Chen Nan had also succeeded in obtaining his divine power from the golden bow he had summoned and immediately used the golden bow as a weapon to defeat Sun Tzu. After successfully killing Sun Tzu, all kingdom members, including the king and princess Su Yu, rose again and regained their spiritual power. Finally, Chen Nan's mission to find his true self and strength has been accomplished. The film ends. The moral that can be learned from this film is, don't easily trust people who we think are good, because sometimes, the people closest to us can also betray and hurt us from behind.